Well, my name is Sally Hatcher, and I'm the director of our Commercialization Academy here at CU. Welcome. So we are really excited to launch a new program, which is that we've been operating the Commercialization Academy for a couple of years. We've seen a lot of teams at CU, and then we've benchmarked across the country. And we have realized that when we are talking about entrepreneurship on campus, we do two things that are unique. One is an on-campus startup really is different. And then the second is if you have a high-tech startup. So something that's going to require substantial software or hardware, and there's maybe some intellectual property around it. If you have been a researcher, scientist or engineer in the lab, and you've come up with a really great idea you want to commercialize, that is unique and different from other startups. So in order to help you, we have had to kind of go deep and understand what's the difference in a high-tech startup, and why would you do that. So we call this a flipped framework. And the reason is, think about how most startups start. Most things these days happen when you are walking through the grocery store and you say, I need capers. Where in the world do they keep capers? And so, well, the only thing you have is that really old ancient sign that's way up high over aisle 6, and you go like scrolling down and looking for capers. Capers isn't listed. So now you have no idea. Your next thing is to drag over, some poor stock person who has no idea. And pretty soon, like the whole place is hunting for your capers. So you say, I'm going to create an app which will help people find capers. So that's a really classic way that most startups work these days. And instead, most of the people in this room, I'm going to bet you, started with really cool innovation in their lab. And they made something really interesting work. And so they've got a functioning research project, and they say, wow, if people use this in industry, it would make industry better. So they're starting from the other end. Instead of finding a problem in industry that they're solving, they are starting with their own cool solution, and they're going looking for a problem to solve. Okay? So that's the fundamental difference. That's why we have to flip the framework. Is we have to figure out how to go find the right problem for your technology to solve. That is actually pretty non-trivial. So what have we done? We've created a 12-step program on how to do this. And you might as well just tell me, back of the room, can you read the white print in there? Okay, sorta, couple need glasses. Okay, yeah, so as I reviewed this morning, I thought it was pretty funny because I couldn't quite see it. So the first thing we're doing today is figuring out the framework. We're going to talk about the overarching view, and then some hazards and pitfalls along the way. Second thing, we will talk about customer discovery. I just hit on this for the first time, but it's finding the right person who will actually buy your product from you. The next, what the hell is an IRL? Why would I care? We'll go there. Number 4, do I license this technology, or do I actually form a startup? Number 5, explore your ecosystem. I'm going to tell you what an ecosystem means in this perspective or in this construct, why it matters to you. Number 6, financials. Basics of every company is your financials. That's your metrics for your KPIs, your OKRs, everything else. Every metric of how you measure yourself is really done financially. Number 7, building your team. How you do it and why. What do you need? Number 8, the founder's punch list. So how do I ratchet this off? This is really about things like incorporating, figuring out your valuation, figuring out your cap table. What are these basic legal structures and so forth to put it together? Number 9, IP strategy. We were talking about this earlier. Lots of people are working on patents here. I actually consider that number 9 in my list of 12 things to get done as you're starting a company. We'll talk about why. Number 10, A minimum viable product. What's it mean? When do you need it? Number 11, guide to getting funded. We talk a lot about funding. Last year, we ran 6 programs back to back on different ways to get funding, because that's right, what matters. Number 12, where to go next. Once you have a functioning on-campus startup, how do you get off campus? Where do you go next? So, okay, so I'm gonna walk through these a little bit deeper. Again, today's talk, we just talked about why the framework is flipped. Then I've got some startup myth busters of things you might not have thought about that you should know before getting started, and then your first steps. So number 2, back on this customer discovery. As we have done this work, we have found that this basic question of understanding your customer is the most important thing we can do for you. It's really, really hard. You have spent a whole lot of time doing the math, building something on the bench top, and now you need to turn that around and you need to really understand what your customers are and what their problem is so that you can solve it. In business speak, that's called a product market fit. And if you can get to a product market fit, you are incredibly more likely to have a successful startup. So, I mean, that's going to put you up in order of magnitude likelihood right there. So we do a number of workshops on this. This will be, let me back up. We're going to do this 12-step as once a month free lunch and learns that you can come in for an hour and pick up these pieces. But we also go deep into this. So we have starting blocks, which will be in August. That's a 1-week program. And then we have research to market, which is our humongous program that's in Maymester. So May and into early June. And we have a couple of people in the room who have done this or who are doing it. And they have smiles on their faces. They have survived. So I encourage you to take a look at what customer discovery means. The funny way to say it is that we teach how to talk to humans. So you're going to get out of your lab and go talk to people about what their problem is with their process or their widget or their grid and figure out how you can solve that problem. Okay, so how many people in here know what a TRL is? Technology readiness level? A few people. Okay, so that's exactly what it says, a technology readiness level. Turns out that some clever and crafty people at University of Stockholm, Sweden, have come up with an IRL. Actually, I'm not even sure it's their idea, but they've really capitalized on it. It's for an industry readiness level. So one idea is how ready is your tech to start a company? The other one is how ready is your company to start a company? So we'll come back in March. We're going to work through this. You'll get your own spider web of your strengths and weaknesses and walk away with a plan of what are the next 3 things I need to do to raise my industry readiness level. Number 4 is license or startup. And so super interestingly, when I'm a startup gal, I have started 2 companies, high-tech companies in town. I've worked for 2 more. And when I think about intellectual property on campus, the first question I ask is, am I going to start a company or am I just going to license it? So there are really good reasons to do both. Sometimes you are forced into a startup. Sometimes you might make more money in a startup, but those are not givens. And it's really worth the question of thinking through this whole question of, would it just be a heck of a lot easier to license your technology and go back to the lab, do what you love to do and invent something new and keep rinsing and repeating that process? Number 5, explore your ecosystem. So the ecosystem is actually where your process or idea, your technology fits in the greater marketplace. So for instance, my colleague up at Colorado Springs, CSU, has a company called Living Ink. He makes ink out of algae. And it seems really cool, and you can put it on everything from shoe boxes to like paper to embedded in just about everything you see has ink in it somewhere. So he had to figure out how in the world do people buy ink, store ink, sell ink? Are there ink distributors? Like, who qualifies ink? What's the regulatory process? So he has this incredible map that's all over the place that explains all the things he learned about how ink is made and purchased and processed and put into stuff today. And so what it really taught him was, how can I sell? So we will do a workshop again on your ecosystem and beginning to think through, where is your place in this? Something that I see absolutely routinely in on-campus high-tech startups is not being aware of your competition. So when we talk about the ecosystem, we're also going to talk about alternative ways of solving your problem. And just to throw out there the mind-boggling thought that it may be a problem today, but they are solving it somehow. I mean, there are smart people in business who have figured out some hack to get around the fact that they don't have your wicked widget ready to go. So you really need to understand, how are they solving the problem today? And what other completely alternative technologies or, just workarounds would they do instead of using your technology? So this one's going to be kind of expanding to realize, where do I fit in all of this, and how do I outcompete? How do I have a sustainable competitive advantage? Number 6, cash is king. So I have lived this for a long time in startups, and I will tell you that the biggest problem in a startup, hands down, is running out of money. If you run out of money, you do not make payroll on Friday. And all of these smiling faces in the room, who are all your friends and your colleagues and your employees, they quit on Saturday. And then you're in just a world of hurt. And then your vendors come. And then the IRS comes wondering why you haven't paid your taxes on your employees, your ERISA taxes. It's a mess. So you don't want to run out of cash. So we're going to talk about the basics of this. We're going to have leads come over and lead us through it. Okay, so we'll do cash flow, balance sheet, income statement. These days, there's a ton of apps. There are ways to do this more easily. So we will talk to you about what those are. And then the final question is really a thread that goes through all of this of, should you learn to do all of this yourself? And the answer, it's complicated. Arguably, yes. You should be able to understand how your income statement flows through your cash flow and how they create your balance sheet. And you should be able to talk to an investor about that, because they love to talk about those kind of financial numbers. You should understand your own cap table. That being said, it is easy to outsource a bunch of this. And it may be a place where it's really worth your money to have somebody who's an expert set it up, get it going, and then get help. Get a bookkeeper to help maintain it. Get a crackerjack auditor who's familiar with government grants to help you. There are ways to get help. So all of these will be trade-offs on how much you learn about being an entrepreneur and how much time you save to keep being a scientist or an engineer. Number 7, building a team. So what's the number one thing that Techstars, everybody heard of Techstars in here? It's the most famous accelerator in Boulder. It's a huge microsystem there. Okay, what's the number one thing that Techstars looks for in a company to invest in? Anybody got a guess? Yes, nice job. Who said that? Yeah, okay. What is the number 2 thing Techstars invests in? Huh? Market, good. Keep that thought. Say it again. People. And the way I was told this, what is the number 3 thing? Thank you. People. Number 4, market. Number 5, what's your product? Your IP, your really great technology, is somewhere around number 8 to number 9. it just doesn't matter to them nearly as much as, do we have the team that can execute? And do we have a market that's big enough to make this interesting for us? So we're going to talk a lot about how do you build a team? Which jobs do you need? You know, how do you find the right people to fit those jobs? And then this real question of, do you really want to be the CEO? I did. So yeah, I mean, it's really fun. You know, I ended up, we had a CEO and a president because there were two of us, and I ran the joint for 15 years. And it's really a lot of fun, and it is insanely draining to have to make that payroll every other week, and always be worrying about fundraising or revenue. So, you know, we'll talk about what it's really like to take that seat, and do you want that hat, or do you want to wear different hats? Okay, number 8, the founder's punch list. If any of you know Professor Juliet Gopinath, so she's awesome, and she came to a couple of these events, and she said, finally, this is great, cut to the chase, I want a punch list. Tell me what to do, and I'm going to go knock this out, and I will have my startup done, and I will get back to the lab. And first thing I said was, oh, you can't do this. It's iterative. You know, there's a lot of thought, you know. And then I'm like, oh, hell, she's probably right. So yes, we have made the founder's punch list for you, and we will walk you through it so that you can know what's your checklist for getting things done to get your company off the ground. 9, IP strategy. Why is this sucker so late? I'm making a point. First of all, customer discovery is the most important thing. When you take your really good idea over to venture partners these days, that's the tech transfer office has now become venture partners because they want to see things commercialized. The first thing they're going to do with your invention disclosure is to look around the market. Is there really a market opportunity for this? So we're going to take you through strategy. You know, so what are the basics of IP? What can you learn in an hour? How do you negotiate your ownership? Everybody always wants to know that. We're going to work you through it. And then understanding how IP influences valuation. From what I just said, you know, we just went through the Techstars. Can you now make some guesstimate on how much your IP is directly related to the valuation of your company? Exactly. Not a lot. So we will talk about that more and try to get you a rational valuation for your company based on your IP and based on the rest of your company, your team. Launching an effective MVP. So one of the things to say is that MVP is really pretty powerful for getting you funded. So we had a woman come talk to us last year. She invests in robotics companies. And we said flat out, what do you want to see? And without hesitation, she said, I want a working minimum viable product or a working prototype. And I want a funded beta test. So we're going to talk about that. What would an MVP be in your case? It's very different for the biotech folks in here versus the hardware folks. And we're also going to talk about, again, what MVP means from a customer side. So a working bench top model that 2 postdocs and an army of graduate students can make operate is not an MVP. Okay, that's a proof of a lot of things, but it is not an MVP. So we will talk about what that is and how to get there. Okay, 11 is funding. So again, super important. So there's the early stage funding of your technology in the lab that a lot of you are running off right now. We will also just talk about SBIRs. What are they? STTIRs, how to get them funded. And then we're going to talk about just other forms of funding. So angels and venture capitalists who will take equity, but there's also debt, there's loans, there's a lot of ways to get your company funded. And we'll try to walk through that and help you start strategizing on what makes sense for your company. I'm also, just as a teaser, throwing out there that the financial futures program has recently funded an SBIR working center for us. So I hope that we will see that getting spun up over 2020 with resources to help you all work on SBIRs. So super exciting. That would be a very heavy lift to have them pick that up. Number 12, once you've got this all together, the question is, how do you get off campus? So there are little toeholds that you can use these days. There's a lot of accelerators, there's incubators, there's all kinds of optionators, and we will help you just sort of understand what are some of the guideposts out there, what are the choices. If you get the option of going to Y Combinators, would you do it? If you get to go to Rocky's Venture Club, would you do it and why? So what are these specific organizations and how do I navigate? There's, I think 14 months ago, we ran our last survey and there were over 30 accelerators in the state of Colorado alone. So that's awesome, but it's also really overwhelming. So how do we narrow that down to 2? Okay, so I've shown you my 12 steps. I think your obvious question is, does that have to be done in that particular order? And the answer is yes and no. Roughly, yeah. I mean, those are the things you're going to need. And that customer discovery really is critical. And then figuring out very early, are you going to do a startup or would you be able to license? Those things are really helpful to figuring out early. But that being said, this is very much an iterative process. And it's sort of, I see it as something like 12 balls, and you're just massively juggling. And you're figuring out at any given time, which balls do I have to pick up and juggle right now? Because you'll probably have 4 or 5 of them in the air at any given time. Sometimes they drop, and then do you pick up a different one? So yes and no. This is kind of the way that my brain thinks, but there's obviously different ways through it. Okay, so understanding the value of your idea. And I want to just back up and sort of try to right-size expectations on this. I think that we've hit it somehow with this Techstars thing, but I'm going to try one more time to say the value of your innovation is really in the execution of the company. It's in getting to a product and then getting that product sold to people who use it and like it. And that's where the real value is. So again, it's really worth it to understand that, you're not going to go make millions of dollars from having a really great new oscillator. You got to figure out how to get the oscillator to customers who actually want the very latest, very greatest, still quite expensive oscillator. So how are you going to get that there is really where the value is. And I want to point out that startups are truly exciting. They are really fun. You learn a hell of a toolkit, and you can take these skills anywhere. It's a freaking amount of time. So if you are a faculty member or you have a full-time day job, it is, in my high-tech world, there's really no such thing as a startup on the side. And, you might be able to do that if you make bracelets. I don't know. Earrings, jewelry, there's got to be something that you can do on the side. But a high-tech startup is pretty all in. And Marv Carruthers, as a great example on campus, hugely successful faculty and startup entrepreneur. And you ask him, can you do both? And his answer was absolutely. I can, and I did. You just don't sleep. So it's really worth right-sizing your time, just understanding what you're in for, and setting your expectations. I don't say don't do a startup. Even a failed startup, it's a wonderful learning vehicle. And your second startup's going to be a whole lot better for having done the first. So don't be afraid of it. Just right-size your expectations on, I'm going to make millions of dollars. I will retire at 26, and I will call into board meetings from my villa in Fiji. Same idea here. This is something that's a little inchoate, but it's really important. The outside world off of campus values time and innovation very differently than we do here. And the way that I look at it is that, as a full-time faculty member, if I were faculty at this point, I would have spent the last, 40 years of my life all the way through school and then all the way through teaching being valued on how well I perform on a test, how well I write a paper, do I get published, am I able to bring in grant funding, can I attract enough grad students? But it's very, very straightforward in one direction. It's how well do you do that research and feed that machine. Off campus, it's really different. And companies value getting to market. So, when we talk about product versus technology, there's often, a millions of dollar gap. You should think 7 figures for getting some of this technology out of the lab and into a company. So there's a different valuation on your great ideas. And companies will tell you all day long that there are 100 great ideas. It's all about the execution. So just be aware that there's a really different perspective to how they're going to view the great stuff you've done. And always think in terms of how you're solving a problem for a customer. So going back, that's why I started again with customer discovery. You're going to be sick of customer discovery before I'm done with you, but it's going to be good. You're going to be happy about it. Okay, so startup mythbusters. I have 3 that I hear a whole lot that I just want to take you through. The first one is, I need to be in stealth mode. How many of you think that you can't talk to anybody about your tech? Before you put your hand up, I'm just going to save you from this. You really don't. First of all, your tech is really, really usually very technical. And whether you are writing code or you have a bench model of it, you are not going to go out talking to the universe and talking to people about exactly how you perform your technology. What you do need to be doing is going out and talking to people about what is the problem that you solve. So, and that is not something that needs to be stealthy. That's a great thing. You want feedback. You really want people to better define that problem for you, so that you can figure out if you have a good solution for it or not. Hey Woo right now is out talking to greenhouses. So he's got an idea for really great glass with a better R factor and better clarity. And I haven't given anything away by telling you this. And he's out talking to greenhouses to confirm whether there's a real need in the greenhouse market for those 2 features. So that's, that is not being in stealth mode. That is getting out there and hustling to find out if there's actually a market for your technology. Number 2, my tech will attract investors for me. We all wish. And I have heard a story from Kyle Judah of 3M walking the halls in MIT and occasionally finding a technology that they wanted. That is really cool and insanely rare. So, and the likelihood that an investor is just going to see your lab, jump with joy, and hand you money is absolutely nil. So let me just state that really your technology is interesting, but it's your product that will bring you money. Finally, I will own most of my startup. I just want to throw this out there because I think that people have this idea, I certainly did, of I'm a co-founder, there are 2 of us, therefore I'm going to own 50% of my company. So, okay, that is mathematically, accurate but not precise. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but it's actually wrong very, very quickly. As soon as you bring in anybody else, they're going to want a little piece of equity, or you're not going to have any cash, so you're going to pay in equity. Or you're going to bring in investors, and they're going to take 1/3 of your company right there. So I want to just start setting your expectations that, you know, it's not likely that you're going to own 51% or a majority of your company. It is much more likely that if your company's successful, it's going to grow and you're going to end up owning a smaller piece of a much bigger pie. So that is the Silicon Valley model, and it's been so successful for them that they repeat it to us every time we go out there. I've heard it for 20 years now, you know, of why I should give up my first equity to venture capital. For my money, for my first company, it was worth it because we got so much more than just money. But think about that you're actually probably not going to be the sole owner or the huge owner in a stake in your company. You're going to own a piece of it. Finally, yeah.
From your own experiences, what are the typical ownerships you had in your startups after you've gone through a few rounds of funding and kind of were at a spot where you're actually at?
I dropped to 25% pretty quickly, and then on down from there. So, just two more reference points. If you are a faculty and you have a great innovation and somebody says, yeah, we actually want to make that into a product in a company, we will, but the faculty member is not, the CEO is not actively involved, they should expect 6 to 9%. That's market. So, and that we have, you know, we can pass you the studies on that. We can help you get educated on that. There are great books, The Founder's Pie, but know that it's smaller than you think, and sometimes disturbingly so. But understand that. Again, if they bring in a high-flying CEO to run your company, the CEO, so I'm a little out of date on this, but the last time I was in the game, it was 4 to 6% that they will give to a CEO, non-founder. So they're bringing in team, and they will incentivize them accordingly. So just kind of be prepared. This is like hitting a wall. Yeah.
How much control do you need? How much smaller slice do you?
You don't. So you're going to really, really vet the people that you allow in, and you're going to look at how you build constituencies. So in the board of my own small company right now, we are constantly aligning the board members who now represent different amounts of money and making sure that we have majority positions on the key things that you know, the key decisions that we want to make. So yeah. So the last thing I want to say on this, which is important, if you are a postdoc or a grad student, I think you know and have lived the dream that you don't have a lot of control over your faculty member. So honestly, the faculty rules the roost, right? And this is weird when you try to take an academic unequal structure and you try to move this into a startup. So this is a conversation you need to have right up front. It really does explode when the faculty member said, well, this is my innovation. You know, I've put 10 years into thinking about this, so I should get 40% of the company. You know, you're my postdoc. You've put in several good years of work, but, you know, all you're doing is executing. All you're doing is executing. You get 10%. So believe me, this happens. And you want to have this conversation earlier rather than later. Understand. It's going to be a frank conversation. It's hard. Conversations about money are often hard, but you want to have that right up front. Do not get 18 months behind the wheel, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I'm not getting my fair share. I've done all the work. My faculty has been completely, you know, pulled off trying to work on tenure track, and I've done all the work, but I am only worth 10% of my company. It doesn't feel good. So, and it's really hard to fix in arrears. That's even uglier. So trying to have that conversation up front is really worth your sanity, unless you just want really good but bitter experience as you move to your next one. Okay, so hard, why bother? You know, in some ways that's obvious to me. I hope it is to you too. It really is. You can change the world with a startup. It's, you know, it's a fast way to innovate, to get ideas out there, to get people to try new things. It's a lot of fun. For 20 years, I did not have a boss. I made all of my own decisions, and there's a lot of joy in that. Okay, so what's taking the first steps? Flipping your thinking, getting out of your lab and going to talk to industry. And I want to stop here and think about, that's really the end of my presentation. Great. Well, that's it for today. Thanks, everybody. Really fun, and I hope to see you at the next one in a month. So, yeah, take care.